In the lush meadow, the story of Lulu the Lamb had just begun to unfold. As time passed after her first encounter with Grayson the wolf, Lulu grew more aware of the world around her. The animals in the meadow, though still fond of her, began to see her as a true leader, one who not only possessed a kind heart but also the wisdom to protect them from harm. However, Lulu's journey towards becoming a wise and respected leader was filled with challenges and lessons. One sunny afternoon, the animals gathered at their favorite spot near the crystal-clear river that ran through the meadow. They were discussing the recent changes in the meadow and how they could better protect themselves from potential threats like Grayson. Lulu, now more confident in expressing her thoughts, suggested that they should all work together to fortify the meadow and watch out for one another. "We must be vigilant," Lulu said. "We cannot allow our home to be threatened again. Together, we can create a system to keep watch over the meadow and warn each other of danger. We can share responsibilities and ensure that everyone is safe." The animals agreed, and they began to devise a plan. The rabbits, with their keen senses, volunteered to keep an eye out for any intruders, while the birds offered to fly high above the meadow and warn everyone if they saw anything suspicious. The deer, with their speed and agility, were tasked with patrolling the outskirts of the meadow, and the squirrels, known for their cleverness, suggested creating hidden safe spots throughout the meadow where smaller animals could hide if danger approached. Lulu took charge of organizing these efforts, and under her leadership, the meadow became a safer place for all its inhabitants. But as the days went by, Lulu couldn't help but feel that something was still missing. Despite their new security measures, she noticed that some of the smaller, more timid animals were still afraid. Lulu realized that fear wasn't something that could be dispelled by just physical defenses, it had to be addressed in the heart. One evening, as the sun began to set and the meadow was bathed in a warm, golden light, Lulu decided to hold a gathering by the old oak tree, a place where the animals often went to share stories and learn from one another. She invited all the animals, especially the smaller, more nervous ones, to come and talk about their fears and what they could do to overcome them. As the animals gathered, Lulu stood up and began to speak. "My dear friends," she said gently, "I know that even with all the precautions we've taken, some of you still feel afraid. I want you to know that it's okay to be scared, but we mustn't let our fears control us. Fear can make us weak and divide us, but courage can bring us together and make us strong." The small animals, like the mice and the tiny birds, nodded, but their eyes were still filled with uncertainty. Lulu thought for a moment and then decided to share a story from her own past. "When I was very young," Lulu began, "I was even more timid than I am now. I was afraid of everything, of the dark, of loud noises, and especially of making mistakes. One day, I got lost in the woods while playing too far from the meadow. I was so scared that I couldn't move. I thought I would never find my way home." The animals listened intently as Lulu continued, but then, I heard a voice. It was my grandmother's voice, calling out to me. She had come looking for me because she knew I was afraid. When she found me, she didn't scold me for wandering off. Instead, she sat with me until I calmed down, and then she said something I'll never forget. "Lulu, courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what needs to be done, even when you're scared. And remember, you're never truly alone. We're all here for each other." Lulu looked around at her friends, her voice full of warmth. "That day, I learned that courage comes from knowing that we have each other, that we are never alone in our fears. So, when you feel scared, remember that you have friends who care about you, who will stand by your side no matter what. Together, we can face any challenge, no matter how big or small." Her words resonated deeply with the animals, and for the first time, the smaller creatures felt a sense of empowerment. They realized that their fears could be overcome with the support of their friends and by believing in themselves. The following day, inspired by Lulu's words, the animals decided to hold regular meetings at the old oak tree. They would gather to share their worries, seek advice, and support one another. These gatherings strengthened their bonds, and soon, the meadow became not just a place of safety but a community where every creature felt valued and protected. Lulu's leadership continued to grow, and with it, the respect of her peers. Even Grayson the wolf, who had once tried to deceive her, began to hear of the changes in the meadow. The stories of the united animals, led by the wise and brave Lulu, spread far and wide. Grayson, who was now finding it harder to prey on the weak and isolated, realized that the meadow was no longer a place where he could easily cause trouble. One day, Grayson returned to the meadow, not with the intent to deceive, but to learn. He approached Lulu with humility and said, "Lulu, I have heard of your wisdom and the strength of your community. I see now that my ways were wrong, and I have come to ask if you would allow me to live here in peace, to learn from you and your friends." The animals were wary of Grayson, but Lulu, always kind and fair, looked into his eyes and saw sincerity. She knew that even someone like Grayson could change if given the chance. She agreed to let him stay, but under one condition: he must prove his intentions by helping to protect the meadow. Grayson agreed and soon became an unlikely ally. He used his strength to help guard the meadow and his sharp senses to warn of any dangers. The other animals gradually came to trust him, and over time, Grayson truly became part of the community. He learned the value of friendship and the power of unity, something he had never experienced before. Years passed, and the meadow flourished under Lulu's guidance. The animals lived in harmony, each playing their part in keeping the community strong and safe. Lulu's story became a legend, told to new generations of animals as a reminder of the power of kindness, wisdom, and courage. Lulu, now an elder, often sat under the old oak tree, watching the younger animals play and explore. She felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that the meadow was in good hands, that the values she had instilled would continue to guide them long after she was gone. And so, the story of Lulu the Lamb, who was once too timid to speak up, became a timeless lesson in leadership, bravery, and the importance of standing together. Her legacy lived on, not just in the hearts of those who knew her but in the very essence of the meadow, where the spirit of unity and kindness continued to thrive. In the end, Lulu's journey taught everyone that true courage isn't about facing the world alone, but about knowing that with the support of friends, even the smallest and gentlest among us can achieve greatness.
Do you still like today's story? If you like, please remember to subscribe to this channel and click the like icon. You can receive notifications and hear the latest stories as soon as possible. Good night, my baby.